Yeah. Oh boy, howdy, do we got a good one for yins today. So guys, in case you're unfamiliar or you're new to the channel, this is a relatively new to me vehicle. It's a 2024 Chevy Silverado 3500 HD, but it is kind of a unicorn because not only is it a crew cab, but it is a long box, which is incredibly difficult to find nowadays. But either way, specs on the vehicle doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know this is a 24 Silverado. And today, boy, howdy, we are upgrading. Look at that. It's like the field of dreams. Today, we are installing the backflip Revolver X4 hard rolling tonneau cover from realtruck.com. And let me tell you, brother, I have done my research. I have dug through everything online, all the forums, all the videos, all the advertisements, all the everything. And I think it's easy to say that I'm a truck person, right? This is definitely not my first and for sure will not be my last. But I get into all kinds of crap whenever it comes to actually using a truck, between pulling gooseneck trailers or fifth wheel equipment, or just using the bed as a bed, you know, an 8-foot long bed. So you can put like plywood and drywall in here, bumper towing stuff, putting dirt bikes and quads and firewood and stuff back here. Well, I want the ability to close off my bed area and have it weather tight. That is a big deal. That's a number one thing. Number two, I want to have some kind of security. So that's where this thing really shines, because yes, it is a tonneau cover. So it's not like a solid one-piece deal, even though it is. But I mean, if you're not familiar, you'll see when we get in here. But this thing rolls up and it's aluminum slats. They're like put together. So it is kind of one piece, but it's movable. So this thing is like a rigid, safe thing. Whenever you have this thing closed and locked and you raise the tailgate and lock it, now your bed is secured and weather tight. So it's got all the weather stripping and all the lock engagement and everything is underneath that you have to access through the tailgate. And because this thing rolls up out of the way, all the way up against the back glass like a sleeping bag, it leaves your bed completely open so you can still pull a gooseneck trailer. You can still put dirt bikes in the back of here without having to remove your tonneau cover. Like a lot of traditional ones that are out there, you know, like the tri-flip folding ones, or like the hard ones that have the gas shocks and this and that. And like, yeah, I like them. They're really cool. They're robust and they do all kinds of stuff. But this one, I got to tell you, this is the Goldilocks tonneau cover. Like I mentioned, I did so much research and this thing just ticks off every box what I was looking for. It's just, there's nothing left to do it, but let's rip into this thing and see what it's all about. So guys, whenever you get this thing from Real Truck, it's going to come in two pieces. The small box is like the side rails where everything locks into and lays and does its stuff. This is the, dare I say, the easy one to handle. And this big mamma jamma, yeah, this. Oh. The backflip Revolver X4 from Real Truck. And this thing is a beast, let me tell you. I mean, it is, I'm probably gonna require some help whenever it comes to putting this thing up in here. Oh, yeah, there's some heft to it. Well, like I mentioned, this thing is an 8-foot bed, but this particular X4 cover comes in all kinds of configurations. So it doesn't matter what kind of bed or make or model you have. I promise you, they make one of these for your truck. So use this as like a review slash installation slash I'm doing my research guide, not necessarily vehicle specific. But if you do happen to have one of these, boy, howdy, you hit the lottery, because we're going to do it today. So the first thing we're going to want to do is open up the small box with the side rails in. Yeah. Let's throw these up on the tailgate so we can see what we're doing. I mean, I swear, it doesn't matter how big garage shop you got, it's never enough. Now, guys, these side rails are kind of like the magic. It's the key of how this whole thing works. There's like a cam lock setup that whenever the top cover is closed, it hits these little tabs and it makes these whole side things roll over and lock into the cover the entire length of the bed. I know that's difficult to kind of visualize, but I promise I'll show you when we get there. But these things are really like the key to how this whole thing works. Boy, howdy, that's a thing of beauty. This like matte finish on these. Now you can tell here, everything is labeled right out of the box. They make it super easy. Left side or driver, right side or passenger. So whenever you're looking at it from the rear of the vehicle, left and right, super easy. Alrighty, so as far as installation goes, like I told you guys, these things are clearly marked, left side and right side. So it is difficult to mess this up. Underneath here, there is weather stripping that will engage with your factory bed rails. So you don't have to worry about any of that crap. This stuff quite literally goes in and sits down where it's supposed to go. All of this stuff gets clamped. It's in the hardware kit. It's in this big, giant, stupid, heavy box behind me. But whenever you get these things kind of set up where they're going, then we'll get the hardware and get everything put together. So now, we'll go ahead and get into this giant SOB because the hardware that we need to install the rails that we just put up there is in here. At least, yeah, should be. I hope so anyhow. Now, depending on what kind of shape the FedEx guy left this thing at your house, because like you guys saw me fighting with it earlier, this thing is not light by any means. So I'm actually going to implement a buddy of mine to help me lift this thing up because my wing's still a little bit clipped. But look at there. Giant hardware kit with all of our gaskets and grommets and straps and whatever. We'll get to it. Got some more stuff and stuff. And here is the Revolver X4. The new generation in tonneau covers. I'm telling you, this thing is a game changer. But either way, now we got the hardware. We'll fasten the rails and make that like legit. Now, as far as hardware goes, they give you this snazzy kit with everything and or all the stuff you may need. We got some weather stripping. This is going to go up on the front bed rail behind the back glass, so help everything seal up there. Got some more weather stripping, some bumper thingies, tie down straps. This is a big deal. So whenever this thing is rolled up and it's like sleeping bag configuration, these guys will wrap around it and keep it like condensed so it's not just flapping in the wind. But these are also integrated into the rail clamps. So these will be the very front ones we're going to install. The rest of this is just regular old, these are probably anodized aluminum if I had to guess, but regular carriage bolt hardware. It keeps everything together. It looks to be a 9/16 nut. So I strongly suggest you grab yourself a cordless ratchet. It'll make this process go way better. And yeah, we'll start installing stuff. Well, fellas, as much as I don't like to admit it, I actually took a peep at the instructions here. You know me, Mr. Wing It. But it says here, specifically for HD Silverados and Sierras, that they identify and they realize that there are bed width variances. So this little kit with all these, like, I don't know, it's like rubber cork, if you, I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but they're basically shims. So if you can imagine, the top of the tonneau cover is a fixed width. Let's just, I don't know, let's just say 6 feet or whatever it may be. But your truck may be 6 foot and 3/8. So obviously they can't change this thing by minute measurements exactly for every make and model. So they kind of give you ways around stuff. So I'm thinking here is that I'm just going to like loosely put a a front and rear clamp on the side rails. We're not going to go through and hoss everything down at the moment. And then we can put the cover on, line everything up, make sure it's riding true in the track, because that's kind of the whole point of this. The top has to engage with the side rails for the locking and the weather tightness and stuff. So getting this thing lined up properly the first time is a big deal. But we are going to go ahead and fasten these just a little bit, and if need be, loosen them, put these shims in there, and see where we have to go with it. So next step, we're turning some screws. Alrighty, kiddos, like I mentioned, the clamps with the straps are the very front ones, all the way up against your bulkhead. Well, at least as far as you can. I don't know, you're gonna have to play with that distance a little bit based on the diameter of this thing whenever it's rolled up. But there's plenty of slack here. I don't think it's gonna be an issue either way. But yeah, we're gonna go up there and do that. Now, you guys may see some other goodies here in the bed. That might actually be a little spoiler alert for future stuff going on. But yeah, Mama's whip may be getting some hitchage. So yeah, I mean, due to the whole arm thing, I've kind of really been slacking on my dad duties. But either way, let's get to clamping. Now, whenever it comes to installing these side rails, you guys see this front thing here where the spring is? You want to make sure that that is bucked all the way up against your front bulkhead. So make sure that thing's good and tight, and then we can install one of these clamps up underneath the rail. Now, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. My fat hands may be in the way, but there are serrations, or like knurling, or a track, or whatever you want to call it, on the underside of this rail that index with teeth in the clamps. So these things have a really solid engagement. So let's go around and put on the other three for like our rough in, and then we can get the cover up here. Nice. At least now we know they ain't gonna fall down. Oh, there is one step I'm missing here. Oh, almost forgot. This stuff right here, the weather stripping that I was telling you about. We need to put this up there on the front rail before we install the top, because it is going to meet with this to get us that nice weather tight, waterproof, whatever you want to call it. This needs to go up there. Now, for this particular process, you know, there are a million ways to skin a cat, but you need to make sure that this thing is clean. And if you're like me and you use your truck, it's not. So I'm going to go ahead and take some brake cleaner here onto a rag and make sure that this front rail on the truck is as clean as possible, because you know how this stuff works. You get one shot at making something stick. So if you're going to be an idiot like me and use brake cleaner or parts cleaner, just make sure you watch your painted parts. But either way, this is going on. Just start at one side and peel this thing back as we go and work our way over. Well, we ain't looking for pretty. We're looking for done. Oh boy, howdy, they give you just enough to do this too. So make sure you don't screw up and cut off too much of this thing before you get up here. And that is just about bloody perfect. Now that we have our weather stripping installed, we can get the cover up here and actually look at it. But I tell you what, I think I'm gonna derobe before the next part, because yeah, I told you my buddy was gonna help me. He run off. It's on me. Come on, here we go. All right, now what way do you go here? Yeah, that'll work. Oh boy. Yeah, this thing's got some weight to it. Whew. Whew. We're halfway there. All right, now we have our rails started. We can pick this bloody thing up. Oh, oh. Come on, lift with the knees. There we go. All right, at least we're kind of where we need to be a little bit. Now, this is the kind of critical part that I was telling you about. We need to open this thing up, roll it out, make sure everything lands in the track well. Don't worry, I will bring you in and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let me roll this thing out so you know what's up. Oh, looky there. Instruction booklet. That's cute. So, oh boy, don't let her get away from you. Start rolling this thing out. And they were kind enough to like add cardboard in here so it doesn't like rub on itself in shipping. So you're going to want to roll this thing up behind itself. So like out, back together, out, back together, all the way until we get clean up to the front and we can start installing the hardware. Cool. Now that we got this thing up front, we got to do some other stuff. Oh, hey, don't mind the deer hanger. Yeah, 'tis the season here in the Berg. Now, guys, the hardware that I'm talking about. You see these two slots that run the whole way on the front of the cover closest to the back window of the truck. These guys take some hardware supplied in the kit. It's just going to be a bolt that goes into this track that indexes down into the rails that we installed earlier. But it is significantly easier to do this step now so you don't have to fight with it underneath the cover later. Put one in there, one in here, and two on the other side. And boy, from the looks of things, I can already tell you we got to shim these rails out. So it's a good thing we didn't go through and do it all already. Now that we've got this thing kind of laid down in here, at least a little bit for the hardware, I'm going to go ahead and install a couple of these thumb screws underneath. These guys right here, they index with those bolts that we just put into the track, and they are accompanied with a rubber washer and a fender washer. So you put it on in that orientation. So underneath, you put the rubber washer up over the stud, then the fender washer, then the thumb screw. And this just retains the front of the cover down to the side rails. Now bear in mind, since I have to adjust these side rails, I'm just starting them, not tightening. Just enough so I know stuff's not going to fall apart on me, you know what I mean? There we go. Now we can do some shimming. So now we got everything kind of secure here. You guys can see how this is supposed to work. Yeah. Man, that is so nice. And I tell you what, we are bloody close to it working, but I'm going to go ahead and take probably 4 or 5 of the shims per side, only go one thick. And I think that's going to be plenty enough. This is one of those things where you kind of want to be a little, like, err on the side of caution and be a little too tight versus a little too loose, if that makes any sense. But, yeah. So I might as well start in the back at the hard spot and then work my way back here. So guys, in this little shim packet that I showed you earlier, these are sticky to help things go along. And I guess in retrospect, I could have done this first to make this easier. But hey, let me make the mistakes so you don't have to. That's why you're watching this. You're doing your research like a good person. So yeah, let my mistakes guide you. But either way, this is going to work out just fine. You just need to loosen that front clamp. Shove this guy up in there, use the stick, don't use the stick, whatever, you do you. But that's what we're gonna do. Simply loosen this clamp up and put some of these shims the whole way down. Yeah, cordless ratchet's definitely the tool we want for this job. We'll just keep on doing that right down the line. Behind every clamp, install one of these shims, both sides. Nice. I think we're set. Alrighty, now all that crap is done. I will tuck your guys' head under there so you can better see what's going on. I didn't bother taking you in there while I was doing it because I couldn't see what I was doing. So no sense in wasting both of our times. But I'll show you exactly what I meant by putting those shims in. And actually, it's pretty painless. It's not bad. So let me start by telling you what's going on here. These cleats have to ride in this track perfectly straight on both sides. So if by chance your truck bed is wider than this thing is wide, that's when you need to shim these rails out with the included shims. So underneath here, where all of the included hardware goes, in between the rail for the backflip and the rail of your truck, those shims go right in there and will space this thing out just enough. So I put one shim spacer in between every clamp on both sides. And that brought the whole thing probably about 5/16 of an inch more narrow than it used to be. So this whole thing is going to ride straight and true, but that's the next step. Now, this is the part where we got to start paying attention to stuff, as if we weren't already there. Whenever we unroll this thing, remember we intentionally left the front bolts loose? Yeah, that wasn't a mistake there, Cletus. Bump this guy up just a smidge here. There you go. Make sure that all these cleats are riding in that track the whole way down. Because if they miss the track, it doesn't work right. Woohoo! Well, fellas, that's what I was talking about. Just playing with this thing, unroll it, shimmy it back and forth, leave those front thumb screws loose so you're able to like maneuver this thing around to where you need it to. Now that it's kind of like where it needs to be, you have an option. Either you can leave it down and locked so you know it's good and straight and shimmy your big old dad bod in there and tighten those things where they are. Or roll the dice, roll this thing back up so they're easier to get to. You do you, but I don't know. I may take the easy way out on this one, just see how it rolls. So you want to get these things about as tight as you can by hand. That should be more than enough. Well, fellas, it looks like we made it. Like I mentioned, you are going to have to play with this thing. Just, shimmy back and forth, do whatever you need to do. But that is the basis of install. Now, the beauty about the design of this thing, see underneath this cable handle here? Whenever you pull this, it's connected to both locks on either side. So you pull one, it unlocks both. These are the locking cams I was telling you about. Whenever this thing closes, these locks engage with that lock cam. I'll show you what those do. So whenever this thing is all the way out and it's closed or locked, if you will, whenever you push this down, you see this big like half round aluminum piece that goes the entire length of the rail? Same thing on the other side. This thing indexes and locks those tabs that we just worked so meticulously to line up. That's why I say this is such a big deal to line this thing up properly the first time you do it, because that is not only how it lays in the track and stays straight, but this is what's responsible for locking it once it's closed. That is one of the biggest features about this thing. If you don't do it properly, you're kind of defeating 50% of the purpose of this cover. So whenever this thing is rolled out, the locks are engaged. Now it is locked down the entire length of the side. Now, don't get your hopes up. Somebody wants to get in here. They're still getting in here. You put a pry bar or like a big giant screwdriver or something in there, yeah, you can break it. But it's just like a padlock, Locks are meant to keep honest people honest. If somebody wants your stuff, they're getting it. I don't care what kind of stuff you have. But either way, you opted to get something like this for the functionality. make sure you take your time during the install and do it right the first time. Now here's the moment of truth. We spent all the time to set up the rails, line everything up, make sure the tracks are riding good and straight, make sure that your locks are engaging correctly, you have everything lined up. I cannot stress that enough. Check that out. They even supplied another piece of weather stripping to go under the end here to like really engage with your tailgate. But keep in mind, this thing has been rolled up like a croissant inside the box since it was manufactured. So let this thing, give it some time to relax and get into its flat position. Park it outside in the sun for a day or two. This thing will really kind of like stretch and fall into where it's supposed to go. But you guys can see here how freaking seamless of an install this is. That is kind of like the other awesome part of this thing, is not only do you get like the weatherproofing, the locking bed capabilities, which I absolutely love, but it is so streamlined and low profile. I mean, this thing at maximum sticks up maybe 3/8 of an inch at the highest point from the factory bed rails. Like the cover itself, maybe 1/4 of an inch. I'll bring you guys in and show you some better shots. But this whole thing, the fact that it is like a matte, like a marine grade vinyl, the stuff they put on boats, and the side rails, they're like that matte finished anodized looking aluminum, nice plastic end covers, the weather stripping the whole way, and that cool feature about the strap up front you've yet to see. Now guys, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to reiterate. The clamps that you put on the rails underneath, the very forward one has this strap on it on both sides for good reason. Whenever you have this thing installed and it goes where it goes, whenever you have it rolled up in like the stowed position so you can use the bed of your truck, you take these clip, clamp, strap things, whatever you want to call them, they wrap around the tonneau cover. It's totally adjustable, and they index into these locking tabs on the front. Cinch it down, do that on both sides. Now this thing isn't going anywhere. You don't have to worry about it going down the road. And the kit even includes some rubber bumpers here, just in case you're afraid of this thing rolling up and smacking your rear glass. I mean, yeah, we can install them, but honestly, I'm a solid 4 or 5 inches away from the window. I'm not going to be too terrified about it, but I don't know. It's in the kit. Might as well use it. So here's just a better angle of how this works. So you have this little T-nut here thing on the end of the strap. Go over the tonneau cover whenever it's rolled up. Index into this notch, 90-degree turn to the right. Cinch it up. Do that same thing on both sides, and now you're set. Now guys, just in case you're new to the Revolver scene and this is your first glimpse at a Revolver backflip, or Revolver X4 made by Backflip and RealTruck.com. These things, this is the newest iteration of this. These things have existed before, but they are getting substantially better with every new iteration. So the X2, which I have had before, I absolutely love it, and having this upgrade, I can't tell you how awesome it is. Underneath, this used to be just like bare aluminum. I mean, not saying that it didn't look good, but this looks so much better. Like, just the fact that it's all matte black, everything matches, all the hardware matches and everything. So even whenever it's rolled up in its stowed position, it still looks great. It's not going to take away from the aesthetics of your truck. And not to mention that the underneath is black. These parts here, I'm sure you guys have noticed these little rubber things on the sides. On the X2, there was just a long strip of felt that was like epoxied to the bottom of it. The main point of this thing is, since this is extruded aluminum, imagine, if you will, you live in Texas, okay? This thing is sitting outside in the parking lot of your work for a 12-hour workday. This thing is black. It's going to absorb heat like that's its job. So you come out at the end of your long shift, you need to throw something in the bed of your truck. So you just throw your hand on this, start winding it up. This thing gets to be hotter than the surface of the sun. It's just physics. It's how that stuff works. But Revolver thought about that and added these rubber strips underneath specifically for you to roll this thing up safely without burning 3 layers of skin off your hands. Just the fact that they thought about that, awesome. If they think about little stuff like that, you know that they are paying attention to quality and fitment. So as far as install goes, guys, that's it. congratulations on your brand new Revolver X4 from realtruck.com. So let's take a little tour around this thing and just see some of the attributes and features, if you will. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, because I don't need to tell you, if you're already looking at one of these, what you can get out of it. And for how easy it is to put together, how seamless the whole thing is, and what you get out of it, I couldn't recommend the Revolver X4 anymore. So be sure to check out the links in the description to get to realtruck.com and get one of these for your truck. I'll see you on the next one.